Hello and welcome to Yoga for Athletes class number 2. I'm Christine Davidson and I am really excited to start this practice with you today. It's all about the ankle joint. And we'll get started first of all with a little bit of a warm-up for the ankle joint, and then we'll do a bit of strengthening, some stretching through Yoga Asana, and then a little bit of myofascial release. Finally, we're going to do breath and meditation for focus. So let's start. First, a little bit of a warm-up. So last time when we were working on the feet, we did a press up onto the ball of the feet. This time we're just going to flex the ankle and the knee. So just flexing and extending. Going slowly to begin. And your goal is to feel even pressure on the inner and the outer edge of both feet. Like so. And now this may seem really silly, but what I want you to do is just a little bit of bouncing or pressing up through the balls of the feet. And now we're going to get a little bit bigger in the bounce. So what this is doing, it's activating all of those muscles that cause the ankle joint to open. And it's also putting a little pressure on the Achilles tendon. And we want to do that to strengthen it. Okay, so coming to stillness with that. Again, just a couple times. Flexion and extension of the joint. And now, coming into a seated position. Our next exercise will require the use of some sort of belt. It could be any belt. A slightly stretchy belt, if you have it, like a house coat belt, is ideal. Or if you have a TheraBand, so just a stretchy band, you can get TheraBands at most drugstores, or you can get them from medical supply shops. I'm going to wrap it around the balls of my feet, and then I'm going to go into plantar flexion, so pointing the toes, and then dorsiflexion, flexing the ankle. So I move through this range of motion, and I can make it easier or harder by just adjusting the tension. And as we do this, just for good measure, we'll focus on having good posture. So you may feel muscles, the length of the back part of your lower leg bone activating. Now as you do this, be really conscious of doing it evenly with both feet and not allowing the feet to roll in or roll out, but moving the joint in a really smooth alignment. You may find it's actually challenging to get both to go at the same time. And just a few more times doing this. So there are different types of TheraBands, different levels of resistance. This one's pretty easy. You can also do this exact same thing 1 foot at a time. And that puts a little bit more individualized focus on the muscles. All right. We will leave that one. The next one is really fun. Doing a little bit of instability training. So you can do instability training on any unstable surface. Even just a blanket. It's not a solid surface, so that's going to challenge your balance. But if you happen to have it, a wobble board is a really great tool. If you're using a wobble board, I highly recommend having a wall handy or a chair, just to make sure you don't wipe out. So with my feet more or less hip distance and parallel, I'm going to practice dorsiflexion and plantar flexion, trying to move the board just straight forward and straight back without too much lateral tilting. Hands on hips. We'll make it a little bit more challenging. Notice it helps to activate the core muscles a little bit and to keep the pelvis in the same place so that you're just using your ankles. Now, given enough time, you'll definitely start to feel this making you a bit sore in the lower leg. Our goal is really just to activate the proprioceptors. There we go. It's interesting, as I'm talking, if I'm not concentrating, it definitely gets harder. Someone's loud vehicle out there. Okay, now, next challenge. Seeing how well you can balance on this thing, moving through kind of some different experiments, and maybe for a moment sticking a total balance. Oh, surprisingly difficult. And you may find just by trying to do this, all these little muscles, there we go, that was better. All these little muscles around the ankle are firing and letting go. You can really feel a lot of action taking place around the ankle joint and the lower leg bones. That is good practice. Good thing to do maybe while you're studying. So we'll start by coming into all fours. And in our class working on the foot, we did a couple of postures, one called Thunderbolt, and then a pose where we had the toes of one foot curled under and the toenails of the opposite foot flat on the mat, and then we straightened the leg. Tonight we're going to do a similar posture, but it's going to be a little bit more focused on the top of the foot. So from all fours, step your right foot forward, and if it's okay for your knee, and go slowly to check in and make sure it is okay with your knee. Coming all the way down to sitting on your heel. And taking your fingers behind you, plant them firmly, and then lift your knee. With this little bit of incline, you'll start to feel a pretty powerful stretch in the top of the foot. There's 3 more cycles of breath. Ooh, that's getting powerful. It's interesting. What we are putting stress on, it's not just muscle, but it's connective tissue. Ligaments, tendons, fascia all fall into the category of connective tissue. It doesn't operate the same way as muscle. It doesn't really stretch, but it responds to force. And that's what we're doing here. Now coming out of that one, back to all fours, circling the ankle, holy smokes. And then switching the other side. So the left foot's going to come forward. We're going to sink the pelvis back and down. Take the hands behind us. And then create an incline with that knee and just pause and breathe. Now for people who have dodgy knees like myself, again, if this hurts at all, please don't do it. There are other ways. You can just skip this part. Now we can still, while we're doing this posture, be working on our general posture. It's more of a neutral spine, not collapsing like this. I was doing that. Being a little more disciplined with your posture. As you continue to breathe through just 3 more cycles of breath. I'm getting ready to come out of this one slowly. I'm going to scoop my foot in, shift my torso forward, and then come back to all fours, circling that ankle. Holy smokes, feels like a new ankle. And then our next posture, counter movement. So that was plantar flexion. Now we're going to do dorsiflexion by curling the toes under and coming up into downward facing dog pose. And always when I do this one, I plant the big toe, fan the toes out far, and stick them to the mat. By doing that, I find I get a much better stretch, not just in the back of the leg, but through the feet as well. We can start with slightly bent knees, and we focus on making the arms strong, but releasing so that the ears come down away from the shoulders, creating some space there. And if the body allows, you can maybe start to straighten the knees, but please do not straighten the knees if doing so causes you to round your spine. So we want a neutral spinal position. And over time as you practice, that will just become natural. Now if you do get your heels all the way to the floor, you can try this. Try lifting the toes away from the mat. That will intensify the stretch. And just one more cycle of breath. And then lowering down and coming into Dandasana, staff pose. For another interesting kind of off the beaten path, shall we say, type of posture, I'm going to invert the foot. So I'm taking the inner edge of the foot towards me, pinky toe side of the foot away from me. And it's almost like I'm trying to put the feet flat together. And I'm going to go the opposite way. It's like I'm opening a book. I am everting the foot. So inner edge of the foot pushing away from me, outer edge of the foot coming towards. Again, we will invert, and then evert, invert, evert. Now, if you're someone who's rolled your ankle before, or if you have damaged some of the connective tissue in your ankle, and this is causing you pain, might be a sign that you still need to be working with your physiotherapist. And as athletes, we take all the information that our body gives us as a gift. Pain, discomfort, all the tweaks and tinges that you feel in your body give you information about your technique, and it's information about what you maybe need to take care of. So we don't want to ignore it. We pay careful attention to take good care of ourselves. Okay, so we have strengthened, we have stretched, we are ready for Yoga Asana. From Dandasana staff pose, come into a cross-legged position and then press to come forward, uncross the legs, and ta-da, you are in all fours posture. We'll curl the toes under, lift up and back into downward facing dog pose, but then we're going to step the right foot forward and the left, coming all the way to the top edge of the yoga mat and standing forward fold with bent knees. Why with bent knees? That's going to make it easier for us to maintain a safe neutral alignment with the spine. And then eyes wide open, I'm going to curl up to standing. Set my foundation by fanning out my toes, and then I stand in Dandasana, mountain pose. When I stand in mountain pose, I internally rotate the upper leg bones just a little bit so that I feel the inner edges of the feet pressing down. Then I fan out the toes more, connect the outer edges of the feet, and then externally rotate just until I come into this perfect rock solid balance position. And then I try to create the most straight alignment for the center of the body. I'm going to empty the lungs, and then inhale for sun salutations, arms up. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, step the left foot back far, knee down, arm up. And exhale to plank pose. I pause here for a breath in. And on my exhale, I lower my knees, my chest, and my chin. Inhale, bring the chest forward, roll the shoulders up and back. Cobra pose, but without compressing in the low back. And then exhale, push up and back. Downward facing dog pose. Pause here for a breath. Now looking forward, step the left foot in place of the left hand, right way down, arms up. And exhale, place the hands and step to the top edge of the mat, standing forward fold. Inhale, bring the arms all the way up. And exhale, arms at your side, setting up to go again. Inhale, empty the lungs. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, step the right foot back, knee down, arms up. And exhale, plank posture. Pause for an inhale. And exhale, lower knees, chest, and chin. Inhale, Cobra, Bhujangasana. And exhale, up and back into downward facing dog pose for a couple breaths. Looking forward, inhaling, step the right foot in place of the right hand, left knee down, arms up. And exhale, standing forward fold. Inhaling, arms all the way up. And exhale, Tadasana, mountain pose. Pausing here for a breath, and we'll move on to the next pose. Inhaling, arms up. This time, when we exhale, arms coming out to the side as you forward fold. Inhale, step the left foot back far. Pivot on the ball of the foot to turn that left foot perpendicular to the right. And then with your next inhale, windmill your arms up into Virabhadrasana, B, Warrior 2 posture. Some cool alignment things to do here. Make sure you can see your big toe on the inner edge of your leg. If you don't see it, you need to externally rotate your right femur. Make sure there's even pressure on the inner and outer edge of your back left foot. And then please do not sink lower than 90 degrees in the front knee. Pausing here for a couple more cycles of breath. This is a strengthening pose, hence why it's called warrior pose. And we're going to keep the feet exactly where they are as we move into our next posture, triangle pose. We do it like this. Inhale, straighten the right leg, and inch the left foot forward, pivoting on the heel so that you turn your left foot towards the front left corner of your mat. And we inhale again, arm reaches up. And then as we exhale, we bring the hand down, maybe to rest on the shin, or maybe you can get to the ankle. I like to do this using a yoga brick. I place it on the outer edge of my ankle. And then I can press into the block, press into my feet, and open my pelvis up towards the ceiling. Traditionally, the aim of this posture is actually to stretch the side body, but you may also really feel it in the back of the right leg. To create the stability of the pose, we're using the ankle muscles. And if you can lift your arms up but still have the integrity of the posture, that's a good sign. If you have to readjust to lift your hand up, that may be a sign that you're not using the muscles to support the pose. And then coming out of that posture, windmilling arms back down to the mat. Stepping into plank posture. Inhale. Exhale. Knees, chin and chest. Inhale, cobra. And exhale, up and back. Downward facing dog. We'll do the same thing, opposite side. Inhaling, step the left foot and place of the left hand, and then pivot on the back right foot. Windmill the arms up with your next inhale, and then sink into warrior two, gazing over your front middle finger. Now with this one, I find I like to wiggle my feet around until I find that good, stable foundation. And then from there, I can create lift. For each of us, the spacing in between the feet will differ. It is said, though, that your wrists will be directly over your ankles in the ideal alignment. Just a couple more cycles of breath. And with your next inhale, straighten the leg, adjust the back foot, so you pivot the right toes forward, and then reaching up with the arm, exhaling forward and down. Using a support if you like. And hanging out in triangle pose, hand on the hip. If you want to go deeper, you can extend your arm overhead. But check, can you pick up that hand? Is there integrity in the legs? Is there stability in the pose? You may feel stretch here in the side body, maybe also in the hamstring. And one more cycle of breath. And exhale, windmill arms down. Plank pose. Inhale. Exhale, knees, chest, and chin. Inhale, cobra pose. And exhale, up and back. Downward facing dog. Walk your feet to meet your hands. And then come up to standing. Shake out the legs. Good job. Our next pose is one of the iconic yoga poses. It's called tree pose, and it's a balance. We can do it in different levels. First level, I'm going to shift my body weight into my right foot, peel the left foot off of the mat, and turn the knee out, and I can have the ball of the foot just hovering on the mat to give me a little bit of support. If you want to go deeper, one level deeper is bringing the foot to the calf below the knee. And for some, you may be able to get the foot above the knee, but please do not press the foot into the knee. Now, sometimes the balance is going to falter. That's okay. It's interesting, when I lose my balance, almost always I feel these muscles let go, the lateral glutes. We'll talk about those more when we get to the hip joint. Holding tree pose, Vrikshasana. It can help to have your gaze focused on a central, non-moving target. And if the balance wobbles, part of the benefit of the pose is figuring out how to bring the balance back. Coming out of that pose, shake out the legs a little bit in preparation for the opposite side. Now fanning out the toes, anchor the inner and outer edge of your left foot, and then choose a level of height that's going to be beneficial for you. And don't feel like you have to go to the highest point. Now, this is my left leg, my dodgy leg. I injured my left knee a couple years ago, and it's so much harder. But that's precisely why these balance poses, wow. Oh, I'm gonna have to reset. Why they're so good for me, and why they're so good for you too. Not only is it great for muscle, or pardon me, injury rehab, great for injury prevention also. And if I can, okay, there we go, now we're stabilizing. Sometimes it's not a matter of strength, often it's a matter of coordination between the brain and the body. It takes a little bit of time for that to happen. And then as the muscles get tired, you may start to falter a little bit. Through concentration, I can always bring myself back. And coming out of that pose, awesome, shake out the legs. And our next couple poses are going to be on the ground. First one, pigeon pose. In our last class, we did a baby pigeon pose. You may remember we came into a very acute angle of the knee, lowering the opposite knee down and just inching it backwards, turning the belly button diagonally forward and bringing the forearms down. Now where I get the stretch is by allowing the hip to just fall to the yoga mat. It's almost like a peeling action or an external rotation of the right femur. But because there's such a tight angle at the knee joint, I don't get this crazy torque of the full version of pigeon pose. And so I learn how to get into the pose with proper mechanics without unnecessary strain. When I went to yoga, or when I went to India to study yoga, I remember telling my teacher, what do you do to help keep your students from sustaining yoga injuries? And he looked at me with genuine shock and said, how is anyone getting hurt in yoga? It's because we're Westerners and we do things to the extreme. One more breath. And then we're going to switch to the other side. We can do it like this. Just roll onto the outer hip, release the leg, and then come to the other side of your mat to set up and bring your left knee this time in between the hands at an acute angle. Inch your other knee, your right knee back. Turn the belly button. Lower the forearms and allow this external rotation of the left femur so that you feel a little bit of stretch. And I do this with my back toes curled under so that I can practice keeping the alignment of the heel pointing straight up towards the ceiling. Some people do it with the foot flat on the floor. I find that invites sickling or inversion or eversion of the foot. Now as we move through classes 3 and 4, we are going to get into the bigger pigeon pose, the one that maybe you're more familiar with. But to start, we will discipline ourselves to find optimal alignment. And one more breath, emptying the lungs. Rolling to the outer edge of the left hip, release the right leg, and then come forward, back into Dandasana staff pose. Now in this staff pose, we're just going to practice finding this 90-degree angle of the torso relative to the lower legs. For a lot of people with tight hamstrings, athletes in particular, you'll go to do this and then there will be a rounding that's happening in the spine. That's okay. If that's happening, you can use a blanket, fold it maybe a couple times, or you may even need a block to elevate the pelvis so that you can create this 90-degree angle. And then once there, we inhale, exhale, just push into the floor to bring your torso forward. Now, if you have to bend the knees, that's totally okay. We do this practice over a lifetime rather than over an afternoon. And so we're in no rush to reach perfection. The perfection is already inherent in your body, no matter how it is. I'm recording this class live from a beautiful studio in Vernon, British Columbia, oneyoga.com. I really like this space because I can see out the window the people of Vernon going by. Often they're looking in at me, and that's okay. Coming, oh yeah, out of that seated forward fold. And then a little counter pose. So that was a deep stretch for the back. Now I'm going to do a deep stretch for the front by coming onto my forearms, having my forearms, or pardon my elbows right below my shoulders. I externally rotate the upper arm bones. I'm going to take my head back and I'll feel a stretch in the chest. This is modified fish pose. Oh, this is so good. If you're someone who spends way too much time at a computer like I do, this is essential daily therapy. Then we come out slowly, drawing the chin to the chest. Sometimes you can actually get dizzy coming out of this one. We peel ourselves out of the pose slowly. Finishing our practice with a twist, a spinal twist. I'm going to take my right ankle and cross it over the left thigh. Then I wrap my left arm around the right knee, take my right hand behind me, press up and twist to look over my right shoulder. Two more cycles of breath. Inhale, coming out. Exhale, switching sides. Inhale, wrap the right arm around left leg. And exhale, twist, looking over the left shoulder. Two more cycles of breath here. And then inhaling, coming back. Relaxing the legs. And now let's do some myofascial release. Okay, now myofascial release. For today's myofascial release practice, we're going to be focusing on this muscle, on the outer edge of your tibia, and then we're going to focus on some muscles here on the inner edge of the tibia. There are a couple different ways we can do this. One is really intense, and one is a little bit easier to manage. You may need a couple tools for this. You can always just use your thumb. That's perfectly valid. Or if you have it, you can use a ball. This is a baseball. I don't recommend starting with this. A lacrosse ball or a soft therapy ball is a really good place to start for this work. So first, we're going to do either thumb, or if you have it, theracane. This is a great tool. So just sitting on my hip with my lower leg bone kind of off to the side where I can get at it. I'm going to do a little bit of pressure point hunting with the theracane. Oh, I found something. Ooh. Now, if you have a bruise, please do not push on it. And again, myofascial release work, it seems pretty harmless, but it's always a good idea to check with your doctor first before you do anything new and different in your fitness regimen. So I definitely have some spots here, right in that area. What I'm looking for is a sensation that a friend once described to me as, it hurts so good. I think that's the perfect way to describe it. It's kind of painful, but it's painful in a way that almost feels good, like a release. Once you find that, that's where you're going to hold the theracane. And again, you don't need that. You can just use your thumb or your knuckle. It does the exact same thing. I'm a total dork. Let's go geek, sorry. I'm a yoga, anatomy, and kinesiology geek, so I love having all of these little tools. If you're wondering where to get a theracane, I got this one at Shoppers Drug Mart. You can get them at medical supply stores, you can get them online. They're not very expensive. Okay, so once I've done the outside, I'm going to do the inside. Pretty much the exact same thing. Just looking for that pressure point. Interesting. Now, trauma to the muscle, like inflammation, shin splints, bruising, varicose veins. That is stuff you should all leave alone. So you may be curious about what this is doing. There are different theories about why myofascial release is beneficial. One has to do with breaking up adhesions between the layers of connective tissue, the fascia. Another theory suggests that it has to do with increasing blood circulation. But my favorite is the third theory. Before we get into it, we're going to switch to the other leg. So starting in the outer first. So the third theory is the nociceptor theory of tissue release. So all of the tissue in our body has receptors, many different types of receptors. You've got your proprioceptors, your mechanoreceptors, your nociceptors. Oh my goodness, there. The nociceptors are the pain receptors, or actually, more accurately put, they detect things like pressure and heat. They are the receptors that tell the brain that, uh-oh, something could be wrong. Something's pushing hard on me right now. And then the brain assesses the situation and says, well, it's not really a crisis. You've got a stick poking you, but I'm not too worried about it. However, I will produce a painkiller so that it doesn't hurt so much. And that's what your brain does. It manufactures a chemical that dulls the sensation. And so I love that theory. Basically, you're tricking your brain into giving you a painkiller. And we'll switch to the other side. Oop, I have a bit of a bruise here, so I'm going to be really careful around that. I'm going to skip that. The body-mind. It's incredible. There's a neuroscientist called Dr. Michael Manino, who I saw a talk with, and he explained that we have to stop thinking about our brain being the top-down control center that causes the body to move. Evolutionarily, the body evolved first, and the brain evolved after to facilitate the body's ability to move through space, to acquire resources and evade predators. So it's not brain then body, it's body then brain. Really, it's a continuum. Body and mind go together. Okay, we'll leave that one. And then the last way that you can do this myofascial release with the ball. So I'm going to place the ball just here. Oh wow. But you can see, because my full body weight is down on the ball, it's really intense. I like the other way. Yeah, I like the other way much better. We'll skip that for now. So that is our myofascial release practice for the day. It's really beneficial. In our next class, we'll work a little bit on the gastrocnemius and the soleus muscles as well. Closing out our practice, we're going to do a little bit of breath and meditation. For this work, it can be helpful to sit elevated on a blanket or a cushion. And we're just in a cross-legged pose. And today I'm going to teach you how to count the breath. So I take one hand and I have my fingers, the perfect timekeeping device. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 is how I can keep track of how many times I'm moving through a full round of breath. Round of breath means a full inhale, a full exhale. Let's begin. So closing your eyes, one of your palms balled into a fist. Empty the lungs. And first inhale. We inhale 1. Exhale 1. And with the exhale, we open the palm, push the thumb out. Inhale 2. Exhale 2. At the end of the exhale, we push the index finger out. And so on and so forth. Inhaling, exhaling, inhaling, exhaling, inhaling, So that took us to 5 rounds of breath. What I'm doing internally as I'm counting the breath is I'm silently saying to myself, as I pay full attention to the sensation of the air moving in and out of my body, inhaling 1, exhaling 1, inhaling 2, exhaling 2, and so on. Goal is just to get to 5 to start, keeping our full attention just on the breath. So please feel free to engage in this practice in your own time. What it will do for you is nothing short of miraculous. If you can learn how to focus your attention at will on what you need to pay attention to, that is going to unlock superhuman powers for you. I know that sounds like a really pretty extraordinary claim, but it is true. Focus is the key to performance. With that, we will close our practice. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you so much for taking care of your body so that you can be the best athlete you're capable of being. Have a great day. Namaste. Hariom. Tats.